A new affordable GMT, fairs for all occasions, the return of an iconic brand, and more. This is episode 70 of A Week in Watches, a semi-weekly look back at news, stories, releases, and more from the watch industry. I'm Zach Weiss, co-founder of Worn & Wound, and I will be your host today. 2023 is coming to a close, but not without a few pieces of news and some releases to tide us over into the new year. Before we get into it, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like after you have watched this week's episode. It helps us out and we really do appreciate it. This week's sponsor is none other than the Wind Up Watch Shop, which currently has various special sales and bundles for the holidays, including watches, straps, EDC, and more, as well as the newly launched Nevada Grenchen X Worn & Wound Chronomaster Valjoux 72 V2 and Datomaster VK63 V2, a follow-up to last year's exciting launch in a new sand and teal colorway. Check those out and more at windupwatchshop.com. And now, on to the show. Grand Seiko updates a classic, but just a little. You might file this one under marginal upgrade that is perhaps not quite newsworthy, but for those of us who pay close attention to Grand Seiko's releases, there are some notable details here. Just last week, Grand Seiko announced a duo of new watches in the Elegance line as part of their 37.3mm hand-wound series inspired by the first Grand Seiko from 1960, titled SPGW 301 and SPGW 305. First launched in 2001 with the cream-dialed SPGW 001, this elegant classic platform features Grand Seiko's simplest modern mechanical movements. First the 9S54 and later the current 9S64. In 2017, the SPGW 231 was launched, marking the second generation of this line, coinciding with the rebranding of Grand Seiko as independent from Seiko. This is when the Grand Seiko logo moved to the 12 o'clock position. This line got its time in the spotlight in 2022 when various new dials and limited editions were launched, including the US exclusive Geneve Valley Trio, of whose subtle charms I fell prey to, resulting in the watch on my wrist, the SPGW 277. For the very end of 2023 and leading into the future, a new generation of this line has been kicked off with a 301 and 305, which feature cases and crystals that have been redesigned for greater serviceability. With that said, visually, at least in images, there appears to be no distinguishable difference in the new case and crystal, hence the marginal upgrade line. Though in specs, they do appear to have gained 0.1 millimeters in thickness. As far as the two watches go, the 301 is simply the third generation of that first watch, so you'll find the same cream dial, silver indices and hands, and black gator strap as on the 001 and 231. There's one notable change though from the 231, the price has increased from $4,300 to $4,800 USD. A not unsubstantial increase. The SPGW 305 features a silver dial for clean appearance and one addition the US market had yet to receive, the Beads of Rice bracelet. Previously available on the SPGW 235, which was a JDM model with cream dial and blued seconds hand, the Beads of Rice bracelet for this line is nothing short of fantastic. Back to my wrist, as you can see, I was able to acquire one from a friend who had special ordered it themselves. Though I am an admitted bracelet skeptic, the design and feel of this bracelet suits the watch so well that I was shocked it wasn't available on any US models. Thankfully, Grand Seiko is fixing that with the 305, which looks pretty great with its monochromatic metallic luster. This model comes in at $5,500, so an additional $700 for the bracelet. The SGBW 301 will be available in January, while the SPGW 305 is available now. So what do you think of these? Are internal upgrades worthy of new reference numbers? Is the bracelet worth $700? What are you looking for from Grand Seiko in 2024? We want to know. Fair adds 2 more models to their merry band. UK's Fair has been busy as of late with the launch of 2 handsome models with markedly different styling, the Durham Pullman and the Meredith GMT. The Durham Pullman is part of the brand's relatively new cushion case collection and is a riff on an existing model, the Durham, which features a distinctive bicolor sector dial with Roman numerals. For the Pullman version, Fair embraced the signature dark green color of the now defunct UK railroad car manufacturer, the Pullman Company, for the watch's multi-layered dial. A rich emerald green, the surface is only disrupted by silver indices and markings, as well as a subdial with a contrasting silver ring, perhaps alluding to train tracks. Or perhaps not, I don't really know. Measuring 38.5 by 43.8 by 10.5 millimeters, the flowing lines of Fair's cushion case add to the decadence of the green dial, bringing this Sellita SW216 powered manually wound timepiece firmly into dressier territory. Priced at $995, the Durham Pullman is a solid value and is available to order now. The Meredith GMT is also based on a previously existing model, but rather than being from the same collection, Fahrer took the styling of a best-selling chronograph and turned it into a GMT. The Meredith GMT takes the chrono's stylish salmon dial with blue and white accents and reformats them to the needs of a GMT, with a couple of additions as well. The gorgeous coppery salmon surface, and can I just say that I think salmon dials are a trend that should never end, has been split into two regions, one with a brushed surface, the other matte stippling. On top of the brushed region is an index of applied hour markers crafted from molded lumicast loom, which has been overprinted in dark blue to create a backlit effect. This is a small but smart change from the chrono version, which featured solid blue metal markers and limited loom. Around the edge of the dial, a white chapter ring then emulates the tachymeter of the chronograph, while a GMT index sits on the stippled surface in the middle. Interestingly, Fahrer chose a Roman sword handset for the hour and minutes, the first time they've done so on their GMTs to my knowledge. This gives the Meredith a slightly more vintage feel. The Meredith GMT features Fahrer's 39.5mm case, which has a classic sporty design, and the Sellita SW330-2 automatic collar GMT movement inside. Priced at $1,450 USD, the Meredith GMT is limited to 150 units and is available now. Here's an important question. Are you still as into salmon as I am? Breitling to resurrect Universal Genève. Okay, I'm going to try not to turn this section into a standalone podcast, but bear with me, this is a doozy. On December 12th, it was announced that Breitling had purchased the dormant but iconic Swiss watch brand Universal Genève from Hong Kong-based Stellux Group for 60 million Swiss francs, according to a filing from Stellux. Whoa. This was both shocking and, in some ways, highly expected news. Well, not that Breitling would buy Universal Genève, which I'm going to call UG from here on for my own sake, but that someone at some point would bring UG back from its state of seemingly permanent hibernation. Yes, there were attempts to bring the brand back in the past by Stellux, which included a launch of new watches and a new micro-rotor caliber around 2009, but they didn't catch on. Had they waited another 5 or so years, things might have been different, but hey, hindsight. And why does this even matter? Well, UG is just one of those brands collectors can't help but adore, yours truly included. A bit of an insider's brand where the insiders are just watch collectors. To own a UG is to say I know a bit too much about watches for my own good. Plus, the watches are gorgeous, collectible, historical, unique, and range from obtainable to astronomical in price. Perhaps more than any other brand, the creativity of UG was off the charts in all ways. Their use of color was profound, their typography was clever, their layouts, particularly around chronographs, unrivaled. The terms bicompax and tricompax? Yeah, they originate with UG and are famously misused today. Compax referred to complications beyond hours, minutes, and seconds, not subdials. So what is typically called a tricompax is actually a unicompax or compax in UG's parlance, as it's time and chronograph. Subdials be damned. But perhaps the watches the brand is best known for in modern times are the pole routers, an expansive line of watches with ties to famed watch designer Gerald Genta. There's so many of them, there's actually a book that just came out. It's behind me there. While there were many versions of these watches, the mid-century models with curved lugs, crosshair tuxedo dials, and thin, remarkable micro-rotor movements still put them in a class of their own. That these watches could be found for under $1,000 just a few years ago, and still under $5, model and condition depending, made them all the more appealing. Needless to say, the list of why this is big news to collectors could go on and on. Seriously, I didn't even get to the aero compaxes. But let's get back to the news itself. So Breitling, yeah, that Breitling, has acquired the company outright. Now what? Well, that's the big question. How will they approach the resurrection of this great insider's brand? Will they just slap UG on a bunch of new designs that vaguely reflect the originals? Or will they painstakingly recreate those old watches? And more significantly, the movements specifically that can fit into those smaller, complicated watches. There are certainly many case studies for them to look at from the last decade of how to resurrect brands and how to pay respect to old designs. The days of taking a watch that was always 36mm and inflating it to fit a modern 42mm case are over. Collectors expect more now. But if they are hoping for mass retail success for the brand, the equation is different. What we do know for sure is that we're not about to find out anytime soon. George Kern, CEO of Breitling, is quoted as saying it will unfold over several years. A sentiment that noted vintage dealer and member of an advisory panel to Breitling centered around the UG acquisition and rollout, Eric Wind, echo to Zach Kazan for his write-up on this news, saying, quote, "It is going to be a long time before the watches are released," end quote. In the meantime, I suppose we'll have to keep our eyes on the vintage UG market to see if it goes wild. I imagine there will be a little surge in prices given the news. That said, if you're keen on getting a pull router, you might not want to wait too long. So let us know what you think about this acquisition. Are you excited to see what will come of it? Do you think Breitling will do UG justice? What models do you most want to see return? And now our final story this week, Seiko 5 explores, wink wink, a new GMT design. Seiko 5 arguably had the most disruptive launch in the last several years with the introduction of their affordable automatic GMTs in 2022. Until then, those seeking collar GMTs, meaning those with adjustable 24-hour hands, had to turn to brands using Swiss movements, generally with a starting price around $1,000, give or take. With the Seiko 5 GMTs, they brought that entry point to $475, making mechanical GMTs far more accessible than before. Better still, they made those movements available to third parties as the NH34, really opening up the GMT world like never before. But we're here to talk about Seiko 5 as they just announced a new series of GMTs that will be available in 2024, and I can't help but feel like they will be very popular. Whereas the first series of GMTs they launched were in a 007 diver style case, these new models follow their more militaristic field watches, but do so with a clear exploration twist, labeled the SSK 023 and SSK 025. Both watches feature 39.4 by 47.9 by 13.6 millimeter cases with matte black dials, raised indices for hours 1 through 12, and printed index for hours 13 to 24, immediately giving them a classic field watch look that matches other field watches in Seiko 5's collection. Where they differ is in the addition of a GMT hand, obviously, and a milled fixed bezel. And a fun move when adding the fourth hand for the GMT, they didn't go with the standard oversized arrow. Rather, they went with a nod to Seiko's divers in the form of a stoplight hand, which is a 5-sided shape with a split lume fill. This is an odd choice that I can see rubbing some people the wrong way, but I kind of dig it. It's like a Seiko Easter egg, and something that you just won't see on any other GMT. The fixed bezel with milled 24-hour numerals alternating with small rectangles is nothing short of a perfect addition to this watch, in my humble opinion. It makes it look far more toolish, engages the GMT hand, and clearly has a bit of an Explorer 2 nod. Paired with the field watch dial, these come together just so well. The two versions available for the US, as said, feature matte black dials, but differ elsewhere. The SSK 023 has a steel case, steel bezel, and comes on a 5-link bracelet. It is set to retail for $435 when it becomes available in April of next year. The SSK 025 is a PVD version with black case and bezel. The dial also appears to have slightly greener numerals, and the GMT hand has a red tip rather than being fully red. This one comes on a black leather mill strap and is priced at $415, a new low price for a GMT. It will be available in January. I have to say, this one looks really good. A blacked out Explorer 2-esque GMT for $415, that's definitely a winner. Now, there is a third model, but it's JDM, so you'll have to figure out getting this one on your own. It's called the SBS C009 and features a white dial with orange GMT hand in a steel case. Yep, it's the polar version. What do you think? Does Seiko 5 have another hit on their hands? Do you prefer these to the 007 style GMTs? Make sure to let us know. And that's a wrap for episode 70 of A Week in Watches. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to check out wornaround.com daily for more great watch content. Oh, and have a safe and happy holiday. I'll see you in 2024.